Welcome to Some Stutter,
Newfoundland and Labrador's first podcast about communicating differently. I'm Paul.
I'm Laura.
I'm Greg, and I'm a person who stutters. Hi, Pat and Judy. So what I'll do, first of all, given that Judy is a speech-language pathologist, I'll be using my stretch syllable target this morning to help me to really sort of control my stuttering program, because I've taken the Fluency Plus program through the Toronto Speech and Stuttering Institute. So I have to make sure that I keep my targets fresh in my head. So I'll be using this.
No judgment.
I agree. No judgment here.
And Greg, the more you use those, the more that I'll follow it.
Thank you very much. So we'll support each other, Pat.
Indeed.
The most important thing is just let's have fun here. Now, Some Stutter welcomes Judy Lawler and her husband, Pat Clark. They are parents of 3 adult children, Molly, Ben, and Elda. Judy has worked for 34 years as a speech-language pathologist. Congratulations, Judy. And Judy recently retired in 2023, and Pat worked as a biomedical engineering technologist for 35 years as well. Judy, I really applaud you for surviving 35 years as a speech-language pathologist, because the more I've interviewed SLPs, and I found out that there's some SLPs who are reluctant to work with people who stutter because of the emotional component, because there's so much involved in it. Would you like to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I always enjoyed working with Fluency, and I started off my career with adults at the Miller Center in St. John. So I was on the rehab center down there, but I also did outpatients, and most of the adult outpatients were people who stuttered. So I kind of got my feet wet there, and I always enjoyed the adults because they were worked really hard and they really wanted to overcome it. So they used a lot of strategies and stuff like that. And at that time, I had just graduated from university, which was 1989, so a long time ago. And we hadn't had a lot of training. Actually, we had no training in counseling the patients. It was mostly in teaching fluency shaping behaviors, because of course there's no cure for stuttering. Then when I went to the schools, oftentimes I love working with the kids, but a lot of kids weren't even aware that they stuttered. You'd say, did you get a little bump in your speech? And I'd say, no. So, it was usually a parent who approached me, or a teacher. So I found over the years working with young ones, especially in the very young grades, they didn't have a lot of awareness of their stutter, which, meant that a lot of kids were teasing them, I guess. But then as they got older, junior high or grade 5, 6, then I started to see, well, this is bothering the kids. They come back and say, I'm getting frustrated or something like that, right? But in the really early days, when they're kindergarten, grade 3, a lot of them aren't even aware that they do stutter, unless it's been brought to their attention. Like they don't hear the bumps. Even if they deal with their best, did you know that bump? It's a no. So it's only when they started to get older, from grade 4, 5, 6, that I guess kids started to say things to them, that then they started to get more of the emotional component there.
Do you find that there's a paradigm shift in the teaching now, where the how will I phrase this? The speech language pathologists are moving towards instead of not putting as much emphasis on the clinical, but now on the emotional component. Would you like to elaborate on?
Well, that was just, I always kind of talk to the kids about their stuttering. It's part of being who you are, and it's okay. But I find that as I was leaving my career, I supervised a couple of SLP students that were, up and coming SLPs. they were being trained more in the counseling, emotional component of it. So yes, there definitely was a paradigm shift, but I still found parents kind of weren't cured.
Mm-hmm.
So they always, like, can you fix that? I see, there's not a lot of give us some strategies, but there's not a cure. I can't say that, I have had success with some of the kids who were very young, so when they came in kindergarten and they're very young. Because years ago I did a called the LITCOM approach.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a parent-based approach where the parents are reinforcing non-stutters. But I only had a few parents who could do that because it's a big commitment. So parents have to come to the school, they have to do the session, and then we have to follow up. And I found that best approach for me over my years, I found that that's the one that I had the most success, but it was only successful with the kindergartners, very young.
Mm-hmm.
I say it's even more successful with pre-kindergarten. But the paradigm shift, yes, there's a lot more, like our daughter, she just graduated from SLP from McGill. She said that they did a lot of stuff more on counseling and emotion, talking to the child about the child's emotions. So,
Well, that's great to hear, Judy, that things are, there's a definite paradigm shift because I feel that I'm wiser now, and I'll be asking Pat similar questions about.
Great. There's a shift. What the school systems here in Newfoundland are desperately underfunded from a resource point of view. And we've had this discussion at our tables so many times. As Judy just said, our firstborn, Molly, just finished her speech therapy through McGill. So I have 2 speech therapists here. Or your 100th guest is blessed with 2. So
Well, listen, you're blessed. You're very blessed.
I am a covert lost cause. But this podcast can reach some ears that the speech pathologists can't reach because they've done the stats. Their caseloads are beyond it's amazing. So, the shift has to be to get more resources in the school.
Mm-hmm. Pat and Judy, I mean, to be honest with you, there's such a gap there's a lot of gaps and barriers into the current, into the existing supports and services for people to stutter in Newfoundland. However, there's a definite need for specialized and subsidized services for people who stutter in Newfoundland and supports for the family. And I mean, I retired in 2017 from the city of Toronto, and I was very blessed because as I mentioned that I got my treatment through the Toronto the Speech and Stuttering Institute in Toronto, and it helped me to manage my severe stuttering, not cure it. It helps me to manage my severe stuttering. And I mean, I have my good days and bad days, like we all do, as Pat can easily understand. But when I moved to Newfoundland in 2017, because I'm originally from Newfoundland, that I was looking for supports for stuttering, and I was surprised that there was very little support for stuttering in Newfoundland. And there's no disrespect to the SLPs, but there's no formalized supports. And so there's a definite gap.
I think there are all of the years which issues are underserviced in Newfoundland, for sure.
Okay.
I mean, there's, when I worked in school system, there's wait lists and for kids to be seen prior to coming to school. Well, Molly, our daughter, who is now retired, she's saying that they have parents are coming to her saying that, there's a wait list of 2 to 3 years for young kids to be seen, which is a real prime time for learning and prior to school entry, it's a lot of learning goes on with speech and language development. So to have a wait list for 2 years, I mean, I'm not, it's a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like all speech patients are underserviced in Newfoundland. And in the school, like Pat said, the caseloads are enormous. And then when you get out around outside of Metro, the SLP covers a lot of area geographically, so she has to drive, and she has caseloads covering a lot of schools, just caseloads that are very big, and then the drive. So, part of her day is having to go from one school to see so many kids and then go to another school.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know in the schools, like in a lot of the schools will have like a half-term guidance counselor, or sometimes 1.5 guidance counselors. Or for some reason, the SLPs, I mean, I worked in a school in Mount Pearl, 700 kids, and I had 3 ones there. And the caseload there was enormous.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm really in awe with the size of caseloads for SLPs, and there are jobs out there, but unfortunately, there's not the government's not creating positions.
Yes, exactly. There's
And
a
that's the
need.
key.
We practice therapy every day.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Oh,
Every day, yes, we do. We
definitely.
do.
Well, you see, Pat, this is one of my questions as well. That do you both like? I mean, it's interesting, Pat. Pat, you're married to an SLP. Now, do you both talk much about Pat stuttering, or
No.
She's always hitting me.
she's always?
No, I'm just like not a therapist.
But do you, Pat? How would you describe your stuttering? Would you describe yourself as like what level? Mild, medium, or severe, or what's the history behind your stuttering?
There are good days and bad. Over a lifetime, I'm a lot more comfortable with it now than I ever was, and that would be key to anybody younger now who's listening to this. You have to become comfortable with yourself. You are as you are. Now, that's a very difficult place to get. I'm 60. I wish I had known when I was 13 what I know now. And that's not only related to speech, but in so many other ways.
Isn't that, I say the things to myself. If I knew then what I know now about my stuttering, things would be different, I mean, I'm not too sort of negating, my feeling now is I've always considered my stuttering my nemesis. However, the more that I'm sort of learning more about stuttering, the more that I'm starting to appreciate my stuttering. I feel it's a blessing, because if I didn't have my stutter, I wouldn't be here talking to you both today, So there's an appreciation for my stuttering at this point. As you were saying, Pat, that it's for some people it's a lifelong journey to reach the point of being comfortable. Now, what do you think about being comfortable? Now, do you accept your stuttering, or what's your definition of acceptance? Now, this is a $64 question.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, like 35 years of work life, that changed quite a bit. Private life, we have a lot of friends from a very large family. Yeah, it's not something that I think about a lot. Mid-career, I was traveling quite a bit for work. I was attending training sessions in the U.S. and there's always that initial introducing yourself. You got to say your name. And I'm blessed with a hard contact name, Pat.
It's like Greg. Yeah.
I always try to change my name to something easier. But very late in that process, I learned to introduce myself, but I also introduced myself that I'm living with stutters. So that took the pressure off me from the get-go. Because trying to get into a conversation and trying to explain yourself and trying to start and but once you introduce it, takes all that away for me, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah. So going back to your early question about seeking out some adult groups, it wasn't something that I was aware of. I don't think, other than what's happening now, all of my life there was nothing. You know, there was nothing that I knew of. No. So, but now, you know, it's a part of me, you know, and it still comes up once in a while when you want to participate in a conversation. I was never an orator. You know, I have many thoughts and feelings about things, but there's some things that you just still shy away from. And that goes back to your early years as a stutterer. You felt so much shame and such low self-esteem. And I remember being young in school, you know, back, because I grew up in an outpour in Little St. Lawrence, and the schools never had any speech therapy, you know, and you were just, sometimes you would raise your hand and the teacher wouldn't ask you, you know, so you would be passed over. So over years, that just takes a toll on you, and you just learn to kind of step back, you know. So again, I wish I had known that, but I know now. So
Definitely. So, Judy, I'm curious now that do you want to share with our listeners a little bit about how you both met, first of all, and knowing that Judy was an SLP and Pat is a person who stutters.
No, I didn't know you with SLP.
Oh, at the time, okay.
That's a great part of the story.
Oh, okay. I'm just wondering, did that affect, or do you want to share a little bit about your story?
We were both living in Halifax, and I was working there, and Judy was studying in Dow, actually. So.
Okay.
And her first cousin, Linda, who was studying up there as well, and my first cousin, Darlene, and they still retell this story. And so they had invited us over for an evening, for supper. And they thought we would make a cute couple. I didn't know Judy at all. So, and I went there and they had boiled dinner, which is a traditional Newfoundland meal. Jake's and everything, as you know, but some of your guests may not know. And they weren't great chefs at all. They had individual pots on the stove. And being from Newfoundland, I said, okay, now fix this. I went home and got my big pot, put it all in the same pot. I was ran kind of like a fool. So partway through the meal, I discovered that Judy was in school doing speech pathology. I said, well, I wish someone had told me that up front, and I was really quiet. She was an instant attraction, and I just couldn't let her go. Yes.
And then as I graduated, I said to him, now, would you like to come to the grad speech graduation dinner? I said, you don't have to. You don't have to feel obliged to come to that, you know. And he goes, oh, why would I, the stutterer, have any hesitation? You don't have to.
True.
But he came.
My God, just imagine.
Yeah.
Now, did your families have any concerns about you both getting together, like a person who stutters and a speech language pathologist?
Her parents may have.
No, nobody. I don't think phase anybody. You know, Pat's always dealt with the stutter too a lot with humor.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and like you said, being upfront, and so, you know, he'd often say, you know, to his family, I'm dating a speech pathologist, and they, you know, they're all very funny, you know, and thanks a lot of Newfoundlanders, you know, hope she cures you and all this stuff, like, you know, but no, nobody had any hesitation that they told us.
And I guess everyone assumes that you met in therapy.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, definitely. And you know, that's my thinking as well. I thought you may have met in therapy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a wonderful story. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So Pat, you mentioned that earlier that I mean, one of the objectives for people stutter is to become comfortable with their speech. But you also sort of touched on self-disclosure, and that breaks the ice. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more about that?
Well, it's something that wasn't taught to me. I just said one day that because I've left meetings and I've left other situations embarrassed and just feeling, horrible. And so I said to myself one day, and maybe through discussions at home, I'm done with that. I'm not going to leave a room anymore feeling less than anybody else. And it does take a toll on you. So it just one day I said, what have I got to lose? And so at the beginning of the meeting, going around the table, which I hated, you got 15 or 20 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And
I hear what you're saying.
And you're waiting your turn. You're waiting your turn. So that anxiety building, and you're trying to breathe. You know all the tricks. Well, it just doesn't happen. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Like waiting for that gunshot to go off,
Mm-hmm.
And there's just, and I guess, I learned to play guitar and sing early on as well. And I guess I'm from a very musical family. My mom was 91, still singing.
Oh my God.
Grew up in a musical home. But I think I use music in a different way. I always use guitar and singing as a way to kind of step back from the chair and kind of conversation and to perform, right? So I'm that traditional person who stutters, who does not stutter when they sing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's something I've always done and I enjoy so much.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, Pat. I'm also from a musical family as well, because many of my brothers, well, there was 6 boys and one girl in the family, and most of my brothers had their own bands, and I've always wanted to be a singer, and I love to sing, but I sound like a beach whale, so I was never involved in a band. I cannot sing whatsoever, but I hear what you're saying. When I'm sort of singing, there's no problem at all. No problem at all. Yeah. Well, that's great, Micah. So I'm wondering now that, Pat, what's your perspective on acceptance, self-disclosure from an SLP?
Me?
Judy, I'm sorry. Yeah, Judy.
Sorry, just saying it again?
No, how would you define acceptance as an SLP?
Harder for me.
For your clients, for people stutter.
When I feel like if they, acceptance for me for a person would be when they know they stutter, but that they're okay with it, and that they're not embarrassed. I remember Pat told me a story that when he came in here first from St. Lawrence, that he just went to a family doctor in here, and the doctor noticed that he stuttered and said, "Oh, do you want to get some help for that?" And Pat said, "You can get help for this, right?" And he said, "Oh yeah, there's." But I mean, around the Bader, it been 40 years ago.
So that would have been 1982.
Yeah. So we went to the Miller Center and did outpatient fluency therapy, more like the fluency shaping program with one of the speech pathologists down there. Or did you find that? You found that work?
Oh, it cured me.
Yeah.
And then also again in Halifax, he went again because it was many years later when he moved up to Halifax, and he also went to therapy up there again. So I feel that I know that everybody has their times when it's stressful for them and stuff like that. But like Pat said, right now he'll say, I stutter or, so, that's an acceptance. But if you don't, to me, acceptance is knowing you stutter, but you're not avoiding situations just because you stutter.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's always, a little bit of avoidance for people, but when people get to the stage and say, well, I know stutter, it's part of me, it's who I am, and not avoid situations, well, I think that current then is truly accepted his stutter for first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like I'm doing a podcast.
which is a wonderful staff for a person who stutters, and and this is sort of a big challenge for you as well in many ways, Judy. Just do a podcast, but you know, but
But
anyway, so what
our,
So go ahead, Judy.
our friends, like sometimes we'll be talking about, stuttering or whatever. Not very often, but they'll say, I don't even notice that Pat stutters anymore. It's just, and there's days when he'll get really stuck on one word and he'll go, oh, and then I'll just say, here's your target.
Mm.
And we'll laugh, and then you'll just get through whatever. But
I'm curious now. Now that this is another $64 question. What what is your definition of the F word? The F word, fluency, not that word. But so, what's your definition of fluency? Both of you.
As a speech pathologist, what we look at is, just being able to get the word out fluently, smooth. But, everybody, I always say to us, everybody has bumps. There's no one who is 100% fluent. I say that to the kids. And I actually would say, I have a pause or more prolongation. And I'd say, oh, that's a bump. I have bumps too. Everybody has bumps. Nobody is completely smooth. That's how I used to say to kids, So if you have more bumps than I do, that's okay. So we're going to try to get your bumps down. That's what we were trained to do, was trying to reduce the number of bumps or disfluencies. But in my later years, I did actually used to do a lot of counseling, especially with the grade 3s and 4s, and they were starting to become more aware of it. And I always used to say, it's okay. Even when I first graduated, I used to say, it's okay if you have bumps. I think they have to know that. I use things like, I have glasses, so-and-so's in a wheelchair. We all need things to help us, and I'm just going to help you get less bumps. Okay, I still have to wear my glasses, and you are still going to have some bumps. That's okay. So I tended to do that I had no formal training in actual counseling a child, but, I just kind of made up my own stuff as I went along.
And sometimes that really works, So, Pat, what's your definition of the F word?
I guess hard to define it, but I guess it would be feeling brave enough, or just to have the freedom of speech, and sometimes as a young child in school, as I said, that's taken away from you because people ignore you, or you stand back from situations yourself. I'm not a stupid man, by any means, but there's times when you hold yourself back and you probably make yourself look stupid, So fluency for me would have that bravery and freedom. I guess,
even when Pat was growing up, and I'm not sure, I never encountered it with teachers or anything, but I had nasty things said to him by teachers when he was growing up, like that made him actually change course in some things, right? So I had never heard that in my 35 years of working in the school system. And I spent 29 of those years in the school system, but I never really heard of, because I guess the kids I worked with were so young, but I had heard of situations where, kids are like with an oratorical or presenting orally in class, being deaf because they weren't, they were that fluent. And I would have to say to them, you can't dock a child for stutter. So if a child is not fluent in an oral presentation because of a stutter, then you can't do that. It's like docking a child who's visually impaired and giving them a book and saying, well, he couldn't read, so, can't read.
Mhm.
So you have to give him braille. So, or I should say, a child who stutters, if you're requiring them to orally present, you have to ignore the stutter and go on all the other aspects of the oral presentation, right? And that was a little bit hard to get through to some teachers. Most were, like I say, in my experience, most of the teachers were pretty accommodating. But occasionally you hear of, that.
Mm-hmm.
But and I mean, you'll probably, as adults, like in higher grades, you might hear more of it, but in lower grades, not so much. But now the teachers were pretty accommodating. We gave them some strategies, teachers are, there's a lot in the class and there's a lot going on. And I feel like they try their best all the time. Well, the majority. I'm not saying everybody's perfect, but
it's so true because, I feel that we've only, we've only scratched the surface of raising awareness, acceptance, and education about stuttering within our problems. We've only raised we only touched the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Do you feel the same way?
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people will know what a stutter is if it's repetition. Well, I think it's like what we call the block, or something that know what a block or hingle. Like that. I find that people don't know that that's a stutter. Or so yeah, there's a little bit more needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely. And so Pat, what are your thoughts about, the need the need for the government to sort of put stuttering on the lens of the policies and procedures? They need to take accountability. I'm asking you both the same question.
I think Judy will tell you that from a parent involvement today, I think when given some tools, parents can become involved. But if the resource isn't there, if the therapist in the schools or in health or wherever, they can only see you once a month.
Yeah.
So you just need time attack. If you have support, you can improve. It's like so many other forms of therapy, whether it's physical therapy or mental health therapy. Given the tools, people can become so comfortable that it just becomes priority. And it just, like so many other things can't be cured, but you learn to live with it. And again, when I was 13, I needed to know that. And, I go back to my mother's sister, my Aunt Mary, who passed away when she was absolutely jammed. And my earliest memory of stuttering, I was in one of these blocks that I couldn't speak. And it was like just a horrible, thing. When my Aunt Mary said, go down to the high water mark, put that down by the ocean, call your name 3 times as loud as you can, and you'll be cured.
Yeah. Theo, I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
But there is therapy in there. Like if you're brave enough and foolish enough, become so comfortable with yourself, well, it don't matter. So, in her humble way, the way to kind of say, get over yourself.
You're okay. Get over yourself.
Jump in your own. That was my first therapy.
Oh, that's excellent! My God, the old tales. I understand what you're saying.
Much more therapy better. I can't share here.
Oh no.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm curious to hear those though. Our listeners would be interested as well. Yeah.
Indeed.
Now, okay, let's change hats. And I think your statement leads into this now. Now, you both have been married for how many years?
Well, we met in Halifax in 1989. So we're together a long time, and we're married 28 years.
29.
29 years.
29 years, my God. So how do you both self-care, take care of your relationship? I mean, for our listeners now.
Well, we've never done Valentine.
We've never done because every day is a Valentine's Day, is it?
Exactly.
Yes.
Right.
Not bad, not bad. Oh, that's nice, yeah. But no, I was noticing in your bio, you both love cycling, hiking, and skiing, doing things together.
And music.
And music. Yeah.
And music, and music. Wonderful.
Part of it, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
I'm one of 8 kids, and Judy's from a large family as well.
one of 6.
So we have we're blessed with a large, loving circle of friends and family. So we entertain a lot. We're together with our friends a lot. We're active, enjoying life.
Well, that's wonderful. And then you both have started to enjoy now your retirement now.
Yes.
Now, has that been a big adjustment now?
I was ready to leave. 34 years at one job is far enough. But it's been a year now, only a year. And I miss some of the kids. I don't miss the other stuff. Like, report writing or,
Statistics, things like that.
all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And dealing with the high caseload. I don't miss that, and trying to juggle, make sure you're seeing everybody, which is impossible. But I do miss the kids.
Mm.
I miss the kids, and some really, really sweet kids. But I was ready to go and let my young daughter take over, and with some new ideas and new strategies. But I loved my job, and now we are on our little journey to enjoy our hobbies more.
Excellent, excellent.
We love cycling, and we're waiting for the snow. We may have to go to the West Coast because it doesn't seem like it's coming here.
Wonderful, Mike. And Pat, so how's retirement, the transitioning, working with you? Because, you also had a very challenging job being a biomedical engineering technologist. Mike, that's quite, quite the title.
Yeah,
That must have been hard at times when you introduced yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes I would say I just fix things.
Okay. Okay.
No,
I hear.
It's been good. I was in that field, biomedical, 35 years, traveling Halifax in the VBG. I had a great career, great career.
Wonderful.
I love that job. And again, like 4 years of school, 35 years working, that's 40 years. It's not fair. We both approached 60, so we could get out, so we did. I miss it. I miss the energy. I miss the critical nature. I was a fixture of things. When people called me, you have to do a task, it got done, and so I miss kind of putting on that cape and going into an OR or the ICU and resolving an issue. I miss that energy. But there comes a time when you should retire and enjoy life and may change things up. So
I knew it was time to retire when a few times I went to the class to get a kid, and say, "Oh, can Susie come out to me?" And someone said, "Are you her grandma?"
No. Oh,
I'm not her grandma. I said, "It's time to go."
it's time to go. It's time to go. My God. So Pat, I'm curious now. When you what made you decide to go into that field? Because did your stuttering were you ever challenged before you entered for trying to get into the biochemical field? Were you questioned about that?
No. No. So actually, it was. I went into the electronic program at the College of Trades, and it was here in St. John. And I was going for an interview to Bell in Ontario. Then the college called, and they were starting the 3rd-year program, which is now it's 35 years in. The program has done very well. They've graduated so many people that are working all across Canada and beyond the States. So So they need the grads to go back and do the bubble format. And when they called me, they said, "Would you come back?" And I said, "What is it?" Or they explained what it is. I always had an interest in medicine, and had my time back and knew more about myself then, I would have been a surgeon.
Mm.
I really love OR. I love anatomy and that whole. And you realize that once you get into this program, so many different aspects of healthcare, and once you get in there, like there's so many doors can open. It's huge.
Mm-hmm.
No, I never had a plan to do it. It wasn't a childhood dream. Being an outward child, I mean, we did everything. You know, you fixed your house, you like, don't like you. You know, you're part of everyday life and did things. So fixing things, doing things, being a part of a group, which is normal, part of life. But I really embrace the role. I love the technical. I love the challenges every day presented in a hospital. When you went in the door, whatever you thought you had planned today changed quickly. You had to react.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely. And Judy, what drew you to speech therapy?
Well, I was doing linguistics.
Okay.
I loved linguistics. And the department at one was fantastic. Works there was phenomenal. And fell right in love with linguistics. And while I was there, I worked with some international students, basically, and I had a kind of a TA job there to help with their pronunciation and their grammar and stuff when they were doing assignments and everything. So I kind of enjoyed that. And then Dr. Sandra Clark was one of the department, and I was doing, I did my honors for sociolinguistics. Really loved that. And then she said to me, "Someone's coming to talk about speech pathology to our department today. You should come and hear her." And I said, "Speech pathology was great." Well, we didn't, with no one in linguistics doing speech pathology at the time. So she said, "Just come and give them a listen," right? So I think that was probably at the end of my third year or my beginning of my fourth or something like that. And so I went and I thought, "Oh, that sounds interesting. Kind of sounds like what I'm doing with these students, and I really like working with students." And then I did some volunteer work with the J-Way in these little children's groups, and I really liked that. And then I said, "Yeah, probably I should do that." I was interested in doing a master's in linguistics too. And then Sarah said to me, I'm not discouraging that, but it's academia, and I'm rich and want to be doing academia. You'd have to go out and do PhD in linguistics.
Mm.
But just see if you might be interested in this. And that's kind of how I got into it, was my love of linguistics. And so many good crafts there. They just inspired me so much. And I still love linguistics. My two daughters did it. Mama did linguistics major, and Ella's doing it now too. And anyway, so and just Rogers has such a fantastic linguistics department.
Mm.
I mean, it really does. So yeah.
So anyhow, unfortunately, I'm going to have to close now. But do you both have any last pearls of wisdom for people who stutter, from your perspective, Judy, as an SLP, and Pat as a fellow person who stutters? Any last words of wisdom?
I just feel like it's just be comfortable with yourself, be happy with yourself, and it's okay. It's not really an impediment. It's just part of who you are, and it's okay.
And there's different, looking back over your life, like how I'm feeling now is completely different from when I was younger. I remember, I'll tell you a quick story. Our children were small. Molly was 5, 6, probably just, we were traveling back from a vacation and Molly was in the back seat, and she had a block on a word.
Yeah, she was younger than that. I think she was great.
Yeah. And I almost put the car off the road. It upset me so much that knowing what a life torment I had horrified me. And I looked at Judy and I was quite sincere. I said, fix that. Because knowing what I had endured as a child, I didn't want anybody to ever
Stop it.
And then, as a young adult, telephone, I was always horrified of it.
Mm-hmm.
I hated it. My God, it was the most vile thing in the world. When I started working Halifax, we didn't have email and we didn't have so many other ways to communicate as we have now. So we had to man the phone, because the phone was in the department, in the BAG, had to take turns. And we were all forward to call down to the phone. So I was avoiding that like the plague. The other guys in the shop to listen, you gotta have your turn on the phone, man, And so that's when I availed of speech therapy in Halifax.
Oh, okay.
I'm comfortable to learn how to answer the phone. So different stages of your life, different words with them. Some things you have to dig into and just do it. And eventually, hopefully, whoever's out there listening, find a place where it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Some Stutter Law is brought to you today with help from Memorial University, the Newfoundland Labrador Stuttering Association, and a whole team of volunteers behind the scenes, without whom today's episode would not have been possible.